So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. The future of cities. If you think about the next decade and the coming decades, the world is going to change. We've heard a lot over the last couple of days on the emerging markets, or what I heard Jean-Pascal say, the new economic powers. And I like that, because if you see in the next decades, in the top 10 economies, we will see 6 new economic powers. They will come from greenfield. The majority of these countries will have a population that's still getting younger. Because that's another theme, I think, of the past couple of days already, that the world is going to be more diverse. The US is aging, Europe is aging and shrinking, and even China is already aging. And then you have countries like India, like Saudi Arabia, the majority of the African countries who are still getting younger. And where you have young people, you have embracement of technology, and you have a lot of innovation, because young people by nature are innovative. So the future of cities, 700 million people are going to urbanize over the next decade. 700 million, that's 180,000 people a day who need access to utilities, driving license. How are you going to encompass that? 100 cities of 1 million people and more are going to be built in China alone. And so urbanization is a given. And the world population will go from 50% urbanized to 60% urbanized. But then we have new economic powers like Brazil, like Saudi, who are already urbanized for 85% and still getting younger. And so we expect a lot of innovation to come. But the future of cities, what have we learned from the past, or what can we better do in the future? That we anticipate that technology is going to be a key enabler, that a lot of old policies don't work anymore, and that we need an overhaul. We have gone from the G7 to the G20 already, and that policies, how cities were developed. I'm Dutch, Amsterdam, it's completely occupied. It's not a city to go to work, it's a city to go to recreate. And we're building smart working centers around it. It's going to be the urban century. And my statement is that the future of competition is going to be between cities, not even countries. Countries will enable. But then it's the cities who are going to compete. It's going to be New York versus Rotterdam from a harbor point of view, financials, New York versus Mumbai versus Dubai. And so clusters are going to be, I think, a key economic factor. And that is what Saudi has embraced in its economic cities. Also clusters where technology can connect villages with urban areas. Because another data point is that with the penetration of broadband, in the next decade, 3 billion people are going to be connected. And you will see for the first time in history that in villages, in rural areas, people will have access to ICT via cell phones before they have access to water or electricity. The biggest iPhone application in India at the moment is a lamp, because you can shine in the middle of the night. So our statement, what we believe in, is that everything will be connected. And that is, if you are an urban planner, how can you use technology to do things different? And that is something for a lot of urban planners, that they don't embrace technology yet. And they think in concepts, in architectures, but, technology is still undiscovered. If everything will be connected, everything that is connected can enable productivity. And if you live in Europe in an aging, shrinking population, and you have to revitalize your city, or a city like Detroit, what are you going to do? You have to get productivity improvements of 5–7% a year to just maintain standard of living. And so enablement by technology for productivity, to create new services, and to be environmental friendly is the role, the enabler that technology can play. And so if you embrace that concept, let me give you an example. And the picture you see here is a city in Korea, Incheon. It's reclaimed land. 10 years ago, it was just water. It's basically the place where General MacArthur landed with the war in 1952. And this is a picture taken out of the Founder's Suite. And this city, we are really going to build as a sustainable city. There is a waste management system underground. Everything is at a walking distance of 12.5 minutes. And they have embraced that concept of technology as a key enabler for sustainability. And so all the utilities, water, energy, like Jean-Pascal talked about, are connected. But also transport, safety and security. And so what we try to create is sustainability from an economic point of view to create jobs, but also socially, and to have access to public and private services, and then environmentally to do it in a green way. But it is that comprehensive view of all these three things that we call smart, connected communities. Also, Incheon have a lot of islands, and we're connecting these islands. And so it's not just for the privileged people who live in the cities, in the urban centers, but you can also more and more connect the periphery, and starting with education and healthcare. So that's what we do in that city, in Incheon. We have a control room where all utilities come together: water, electricity, safety and security, transport, and then the citizens, they basically consume technology via services, public services. The schools are connected, a parent-teacher conference, things like tutoring, but also doctor visits. That why should you go to a doctor if 80% doesn't need physical interaction? And you can have a consult before you start driving. Public services, new driving license, take an eye test. You don't have to go to an agency. There are safety and security from home. And then, of course, energy management. That's a simple type of sensors in the home. If my kids, when they leave the house, all appliances would go out, I would already save 10% energy. It's that simple. But we haven't embraced the technology yet. So what are the benefits? If you really embrace that concept of all the knowledge we have in urban planning, but you add that element of technology as a proactive thought and not an afterthought. And these are real numbers out of city plans that I've seen. And what you see, a country like Australia is already competing for young people. How can I make my city more interesting? Because they are shrinking. And it's so between Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, how can you attract young people? And so the benefits in the next decade could be simple energy savings of 50%, traffic reduced by 20% by using technology smartly, and then water, 20, 80%. That's what you see in plans for the next decade. Crime rates down, because it's a more stable social environment. So, Laura, to conclude, also here, by using broadband, you can also connect villages around you and start giving people access to healthcare and to education at a very affordable level. So what will it take to realize that vision? Right. And what is necessary? First, thought leadership, innovation, like we have here in Saudi, the concept of clusters, economic cities, or the King Abdullah Financial District here in Riyadh. Or Incheon, or all these other cities with revitalization plans, Barcelona, Vancouver, Sydney. It will take open standards. And that if you think about it, energy management, we can't even standardize around the world on the plug yet. And so there is a lot to do to create this as a new industry. It will need regulation, smart regulation, and that everything in buildings is regulated, but not energy consumption. And why not new buildings standardize on LEED certification, public-private partnerships, and then last but not least, new ecosystems. And so I'm working very closely with a company like Schneider. 5 years ago, nobody would have thought that. So my call to action, also in Saudi, a country that's getting younger, see it as a new industry. Millions of jobs will be created. Thank you.
Fantastic.